One spring in North Carolina is our state tree, the flowering dogwood, Cornus Florida. It's renowned around the world for its beauty and used in landscaping in many, many countries, and certainly we enjoy it each year. There are a lot of different kinds of flowering dogwoods that can be chosen in terms of flower forms, colors, shapes. There's doubles, pinks, variegated foliage, all kinds. So the homeowner in North Carolina has a good choice to either go with the natives as the seedlings or some of the selected forms that will give you better quality. Today we're going to take a look at some other choices that a homeowner might select for their home landscape. We're finding that small flowering trees are one of the most demanded of the items in the landscape industry today. We don't have as much space as we used to. We're looking for trees that will go under highline wires. And there are many, many different kinds of alternative selections that we can make in addition to the flowering dogwood, which we, of course, should plant as often as we can. One of these alternatives is an introduced or an exotic type of dogwood called Cornus cusa, the Chinese or Japanese flowering dogwood. You see a small plant of it here. This is actually, again, a named or selected horticultural form that's a weeping type. It'll make a cascading, flowing shrub, whereas most of them tend to be, again, larger trees like the flowering dogwood. You can immediately see one of the differences in that this one is also about to bloom. The flower blooms are just beginning to come out, and so the seasons are a little bit different. They don't quite overlap. And so if you have both the native dogwood and the Chinese dogwood, you'll get probably a month and a half of bloom, because this will start as the other one finishes up and take you on into the early summer. They are very popular now, make beautiful year-round trees with good bark, very attractive fruit on the trees, good fall color. It really is a four-season plant in the garden. Now, another of our native trees, and I think one looks at both natives and exotics in terms of planting, and this one again is just beginning to come into flower at this time, probably another week to 10 days before it hits its full peak. This is the Virginia fringe tree, or sometimes called in the country, North Carolina, graybeard, because when these flowers continue to open, they turn almost a pure white or a silver gray and fill the tree. It looks like a fringe in the tree, and quite a beautiful one. Although it's a spectacular tree and people always ask about it, and it is native and a very tough tree, you don't see it in the marketplace perhaps as often as you might some of the other trees, and that's because it's a difficult one for nurserymen to propagate. It's one of those plants that has its problems. It's only grown from seed, and the seed takes 2 years to germinate, so it's not an easy one. But once you have one, it'll live forever. It's a nice small tree topping out at maybe 15 feet. It has no pest problems. It'll take wet sites, dry sites. It's really a wonderful native tree, and certainly worth the effort to try to seek out to find for the landscape. On this side, we have another exotic or introduced tree, again from China, and so many of our wonderful ornamentals come from China because the climates match up there and they're well adapted to our area. This is a broadleafed evergreen, and we don't have many trees that fall in that category, called Laurel Pedal, Laurel Pedal chinense. There's only one species, and this white type here in existence, but it really is a beautiful thing. It's related to the witch hazels and has these strap-like petals typical of the witch hazels. Sadly, unfortunately, it doesn't have the fragrance, but when it's in bloom, these white fringe-like flowers in the early spring are a real delight. It will grow anywhere in North Carolina, and typically you see it as sort of a large, undefined shrub in a sense. But we have taken the tree here at the Arboretum and limbed it up to make it into a small tree, and it will go on up. Again, you can find them in the 10 to 15 foot range with a little bit of age. A spectacular plant, again, evergreen with these nice spring flowers on it. We're always looking at and experimenting with new plants at the Arboretum, and the one that we're really excited about, we've had a 10-year search for a new variety from China that instead of having the white flowers has bright purple flowers. It's really stunning. We have the only plant in America at this point, and we're propagating as rapidly as we can. We think in 5 years that may be one that we can add to the nursery trade. Now, another of our native trees, and this one we're past on season at this particular point on this variety, is a plant called the Shad Tree, or Amelanchier. There are many different species of this, and it's one of the finest of our small ornamental trees. In fact, there are dozens of species and cultivars ranging from shrubs 5 feet tall on up to 25-foot trees. One of its characteristics, which we can really see here, is it's very early blooming. One of the first things in the spring, it often had the name of Shad Tree because it would bloom when the shad were coming up the streams that this grew along. White flowers. In the early spring there are a few pinks, but most of them are white. But one of the things that then makes it an additionally wonderful tree is that this will go ahead and set a heavy fruit crop. The fruit are edible, they're delicious to eat. The major challenge in there is beating the birds to them because they like them as well. And it's a very good wildlife plant for your garden to add in. Essentially pest-free, very tough, durable plant, and again, worth seeking out to try to use this fine native plant, Almanac or the Shad Tree. One last one that we would take a look at, again, is just sort of at the end of its season here, is one of our red buds. Now, it looks a little strange for most people because red buds, you think of these purple reddish flowers. Well, this is a selected form that was originally found in the wild and is propagated by nurserymen for use in the garden. And the thing that's wonderful about it is it has the pure white flower. In fact, some people will call this a white bud as a thing. It's a variety of our native Cercis canadensis that is propagated to have this particular flower color. One of the things about red buds is that they are such durable trees. They take heat, they take drought, poor sites, they grow fast, and they're a very easy and nice addition. Good foliage in the summer makes them a good plant for the garden. And there are many other kinds of red buds. There are kinds with variegated foliage, there's dwarfs, there's pinks, and so forth, even double-flowered ones. So even within that group of our native plants, you have a good selection to choose from. Well, this selection of 6 trees gives you just a small view into the world of what you can find to use in our landscape for the room of small flowering trees. Again, natives, exotics, small, large, good choice to pick up in your nursery.